Welcome to today's Proven Learning series. In today's session, we are going to review Proven Jobs Time and Materials Temp Labor feature, in addition to having a sneak peek at our Phase 2 Time and Materials billing portion. Before we begin today's session, let's review a few housekeeping items. All attendees have been muted during today's session to cut down on background noise. Your videos have automatically been turned off during today's session to avoid any distractions. This session's recording will be available via our PSA Help Library, in addition to our company's YouTube channel. Any questions that you have during today's session will need to be directed to our PSA support team, which can be reached at support@canamsys.com. Before we jump into this Proven Learning session, we want to quickly give you an overview of what we are to cover today. First, we're going to review how to set up your database for time and materials jobs. We are going to review the user role securities, straight to price list setup. Then we're going to review using time and materials on your Proven Jobs mobile application and see how that information can sync over to our web system. Then we will review your current reporting options available to you. And then finally, we're going to give you a sneak peek at our upcoming Phase 2 billing feature. Let's talk about setting up your database for time and materials. Now remember, time and materials is a feature option that will need to be turned on by our support team. To send in that request, simply send in your request to support@canamsys.com and ask our support team to enable the time and materials billing feature. Now, the first thing we need to do with our time and materials billing feature is we need to set up our user role securities. So the first thing we need to do is navigate to Settings and then Roles, and then select the applicable role by selecting Edit to Open. So once in that role, we're going to select Jobs and then scroll down to Time and Materials. So the first thing within this user role security, we have Create, Delete, Edit, and View. Now, this essentially is going to allow the user role securities to modify the Time and Materials tab within company settings. The next option within this security we're going to take a look at is our time card security. Now you will see 5 options in here: copy, create, delete, edit, and view. Now this allows the logged in user to create, copy, delete, edit, and view time cards associated with the temporary laborer. Now remember that the only people that can create temporary labor time cards are logged in users for Proven Jobs. The actual temporary laborer cannot create those time cards. Now the next item we want to take a look at is the Time and Materials tab within Company Settings. So if we navigate to Settings and Company Settings, select Jobs, then you will see a Time and Materials tab existing on your database. We're just going to select that to edit and open. Company administrators have the ability to define a temporary labor label. If your company does not want it to display as temporary labor and wants it to display as something else, this will exist on the Proven Jobs mobile app and within the menu option of Proven Jobs. So I can modify this and select Save. And on the Proven Jobs mobile application and within the Proven Jobs web system, it will modify to the label that I changed it to. Now, the next item we want to take a look at is our Edit Hotel Code. This Edit Hotel Code allows the temporary labor clock in to a hotel code if applicable. When associated on the mobile application, it allows the user to select the associated hotel code to use for time and materials billing. Now again, this Phase 2 development will associate to a price list to be selected. Now, the next thing we need to do is create our time and materials price list. Now, back here in our company settings, I'm going to select Edit Time and Materials Price List. Now, company administrators can create multiple price lists associated to either organization records or to job types. I'm just going to select the associated price list that I've already created in this testing database by selecting Edit to Open. I'm going to create a description here in the description, and I could create price list dedicated to certain job types, or I could leave this blank to associate it to all job types. In the lower section here of my screen, I am going to select a price list to import. In our Proven Academy course and our Time and Materials manual, it provides the instructionals on the Excel spreadsheet needed to upload for the import. I'll just select Choose a File, then select the associated labor import and select Open. I can go and view and confirm that the associated price list has uploaded successfully. I can see my descriptions, my phase codes, and my pricing if applicable. When the price list is uploaded, it essentially will utilize those phase codes for your temporary labor to clock into on the mobile app. For example, when assigned, will be available within the drop-down in the labor code section. The last item we want to take a look at for our setup in our Proven Jobs web system is our custom fields. We're going to just navigate over to Settings, then Company Settings. Then within the General section, we're going to select Edit Custom Fields. Once within the Edit Custom Fields section, we have several screens that you can adjust. But this one we're going to take a look at is the temporary labor screen. Now you can see that temporary labor screen has adjusted its naming convention based off of what I put in company settings as the label. So I'm going to select that, and it's going to go ahead and basically, in essence, populate a list of custom fields. Some of them will already have been enabled on your database when the feature has been established on your Proven Jobs web database. Now here you can add additional custom fields if needed, or you can leave it as it comes established on your database. And those will be available on the mobile application as well as Proven Jobs web system when a temporary time card is created. Now, with time and materials capture, you also have the ability to apply vehicles to your temporary clock-in screen. Now, those vehicles do pull from our equipment and warehouses and trucks. Now, currently, we don't have the ability to charge for these warehouses and trucks, but in our Phase 2 billing capture, we will have the ability to apply a charge for these vehicles, but you can currently capture them on your clock-in screen. So each of these will pull again from the warehouses and trucks. And again, any equipment or materials that have been placed on that job file during the job progression will also be applicable to any reporting for the time and materials capture. Now I'm going to hop right on in to the actual usage of the temporary labor capture. Now this is a feature option that does have to be turned on to your database in order for it to operate. So you will notice in my mobile application, I do have a temporary labor icon. Now the clocked in user does have the ability to clock in temporary laborers. So when you go into the mobile app, you will tap the temporary labor icon to clock in the temporary labor into the associated job. And it will display the temporary labor clock-in screen. Now, if you had multiple laborers already clocked in, they would display here on the right-hand side under the All section. And just to clock in a new temporary laborer, you're just going to select this plus icon. When selected, it will open up a fillable screen. And here you're just going to enter in the external laborer here. You can see I entered in Ray Stark. And then the next section is your labor code. So when I select that labor code, it's essentially pulling from the price list that I have already uploaded into company settings in my database. Now, that price list is either dedicated to my job type or to my billing customer. Now, coming in our phase 2 development, we'll also have the ability to associate it to a zip code as well. And then that labor code is also defined in that clock-in screen. And then if applicable, I can enter in the vehicle code. Now, if I'm not using a vehicle, you can add NA, that's available. Now, the vehicles do pull from our warehouses and trucks inside the database. And then I can enter in a hotel code, of course, if applicable. Now, in this demonstration here, I'm just going to select the truck. That's, again, it is pulling from my warehouses and truck, and then I have loaded in a couple of hotel codes in this database. Now, the next section is my fillable custom fields. When the feature is turned on, it'll go ahead and have a few predetermined custom fields that you can either remove or add to. So in this example, I've just put PPE, per diem, small tools, etc. Now, currently, right now, they're not associated with any billing portion of the temporary labor capture. It's simply just capturing information right now, of course. So here you're going to see that I've just selected those and then actively selected the safety topic. And now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to clock in to a job, and then we're going to select the time in from the date time picker and select done. And then I have the ability to apply a signature. Now again, of course, signature can be captured at the beginning of the clock in or at clock out. And I'm going to select save. Now on this dashboard screen for the temporary labor, you can see who the temporary labor is, their labor code, and their clock in. Now, throughout the day, if I select this refresh icon, I can see all temporary laborers on site through my mobile application. And at the end of the day, I'm going to select that temporary laborer's name, open it up, select a clock out, and hit save. And that'll indicate a satisfactory check mark on that temporary laborer's name, because it's basically, in essence, satisfied all the options within our temporary labor screen. Within our Proven Jobs web system, much like our time card screen, we actively are able to view information in a real-time format. We did add the ability for a hyperlink to the existing job file in the web system. And of course, I can view up to 12 columns of custom fields. So in this screen view, I have my small tools, per diem, PPE, etc. We also just added the ability to duplicate previous days' temporary labor time cards, in addition to duplicate those time cards from one job to another job. So for example, if you utilized those same temporary laborers on the previous day's job, you can also duplicate those same temporary labor time cards to the next day's job. We also have time and materials reporting available for you to utilize as backup reporting. So within our attachments tab and within the reports section, we have a time and materials package report. So I'm just going to select that report and select add. Now it's going to pop up a window that is going to allow me to enter in an associated date. Now you can print this report or run this report from every day or a week option, just depending upon how you want to utilize that workflow. So I'm going to pull this back to where I have some testing data in here. And you will notice there's two icons kind of in the bottom of this report, assign now and add note. So if I click add note, it's going to kind of open up my notes screen window. You can either utilize a pre-populated log note template to kind of flow into this note for temporary labor. I'm just going to enter in my details and then select save, and you'll notice that that icon add note has disappeared. Now if I click the hyperlink to open up this report, that note that I created on that icon has kind of populated here on the front page of my report. And if I navigate through the report, you can see all the temporary labor that I captured on my job with all those custom fields that I created, along with the other information with my price list, any materials that I have added, etc. So again, remember, any materials, equipment, etc. that you have added to the job is also going to populate on this time and material package report for you to provide as backup. So if I go back into my attachments tab, into my report section, I also have the ability to sign it. And that just confirms that I am reviewing that report, and click save. I can also view that signature, and then I could view that entire package as a whole entity, and that will also save into my document section as a PDF file. And you can email that out to an adjuster, etc. And you see that's validated. So this brings us to our phase 2 development for billing our time and materials module. So let's take a look at what that encompasses. So our phase 2 focus is basically, in essence, focusing on finalizing our entire price list. That means our materials and equipment, our subtrades and reimbursables, capturing those internal costs, because mind you, we are capturing our external cost, correlating those price lists to customized fields, hotel codes, trucks, and mileage, per diem allocations, price list, rate rules, and taxes and overhead and profit. And then creating this billing functionality and making it easy for that person that is invoicing this job to understand what has been accumulated at that job site. So the price list setup currently right now, this upper section of the screen is what resides in the database as it stands today. The only adjustment in the upper section that we have added in the specification is the ability to assign zip code logic. When you click on the assign zip code logic, you can simply assign specific zip codes to a specific price list. So you will notice in this specification that a selection box will be enabled to enable the same price list phase codes on internal clock-in, and then an associated materials and equipment price list will be able to be uploaded. We will also have additional functionality for creating flat fees for custom fields. For example, when this custom field icon is selected, it will populate a list of all the custom fields that reside in your database for you to enter in a cost and a price associated with those custom fields. So for example, if I have PPE listed in my database, I can associate either a markup or a flat fee, and then a cost and a price. And then hotel codes, and then also taxes, per diem allocations, and then time card rate rules. So let's hop into these time card rules icon. So when the user selects the time card rules, this will populate the time card rules section that will allow the user to apply rates for clock in and out based off of contracted price. Now again, time card billing rules will utilize the rules for billing only, not rules set in company settings. That is utilized for job costing for internal employees. This is strictly utilized for actually billing your time and materials job. So for example, if I select this button, the highlighted button for time card rules, it's going to populate a calculation screen that allows you to enter in your associated rate types off of your contract billing and your calculations per rate per hour. Then, of course, your associated exceptions. So for example, if a regular rate is 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and an overtime rate is considered after 5 p.m., and then weekend rates and holidays are considered a 3 times rate, you would enter that into this screen. Once it is saved, it appears in blue underneath the time card rules. Moving on to this next screen, this is the bottom section of our price list import. We kind of already covered the labor section of the screen. We've just added an enable on internal selection box. Again, this is just going to allow the internal employees to have those phase codes available for selection on clock in to be associated from that price list. Then for the material functionality, we have added the ability to the phase code selectors. So when you have the price list enabled, there will be associated coding, just like we do for phase codes for temporary labor. And those products that are enabled in our system will have, of course, a cost and a charge associated to the price list when it's uploaded, but they also have allocated coding as well. And then last but not least, we also have our equipment. When equipment is transferred to the job and it is applied and it matches the equipment coding on the price list that has been uploaded, the charge will be used when billed. So costing can still be applied to the job for job costing efforts, but then the charge will be used when applied. So if I'm using a WTR DHM coding on my price list, that will be applied as a costing charge, or as a costing rather, and then also as a charge no matter what price list has been allocated to that job. So if it's on a job type price list or a customer price list or a zip code price list. Now we are also going to add the ability for generic equipment. Now, generic equipment is going to come in two functionalities. We're adding it for our time materials billing functionality, but we're also adding it for our phase 2 of proven dry logs. So it's forming two functionalities in our next phase of development at the year end. So it will be allocated for a simple generic option, and will have the ability to calculate quantities on a job site and not necessarily a transactional basis. And then in our phase 2 time materials, warehouses and trucks section will get a little bit of a makeover, because our trucks, of course, will have an allowance for category and selector defaults, and of course a cost and a charge, and a default cost and charge type. Now, there is going to be a bit of logic in defining the price list. In company settings, you will define it by zip code. So if there is a zip code allocated to a price list, it will be applied first, then established by the customer billing record, then by job type. It can be overwritten in the billing section, which we'll come to in just a moment. Each customer record, and currently this is available today in the database setup. For example, if you have a company and that company has an associated price list that you've agreed upon, that is selectable in the drop-down menu in time and materials price list. So when that billing company is defined on the job, it will automatically associate that price list to the job file. In our phase 2 development, there is also going to be a time and materials tab that will house everything associated with the time and materials functionality. In addition, we are going to also start capturing the temporary labor company, if applicable, on the clock in screen. In addition, it will be available on the associated temporary labor company to look at who has clocked in and out and what jobs are associated to, in addition to reporting available. The next screen that you're seeing here is the time and materials tab within the job file. So that tab that I showed previously is basically a mock-up of that time and materials tab. Here is basically everything that's been allocated to that job. Equipment, labor, materials, etc. Internal and external labor, everything that's been allocated. Now, in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you can kind of see the price list that's automatically been defined. You do have the ability to change that price list if you have security in your user role security. Here we have a button here called Time and Materials Wizard. I'm going to walk you through that in just a second. We will have daily burn rates in here and associated reporting, which I'll walk you through in just a moment. So essentially, if you did not want to utilize our time and materials wizard, which helps the user walk through billing a time and materials job, and you simply wanted to select the selection boxes of the items you wanted to bill, select your items and create your invoice. So if I choose to use the wizard or exit the wizard, so when that time and materials button is selected, or time and materials wizard button is selected, if I chose to exit the wizard, like I mentioned previously, it will simply confirm all the time and materials billing, allow the user to select the items. I can filter this screen. It will also have audit functionality, so we know who has manipulated or created the invoice from this screen. And then once all items have been confirmed and checked, the user can create the invoice. If I chose not to exit the time and materials billing wizard, it's going to kind of walk me through phases of billing a time and materials job. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask me to confirm that I will be using the price list that has automatically been applied to the job. Okay, that's what we've kind of been pushing out to our adjuster, kind of showing them what we've been billing thus far, our burn rate, etc. And then it's going to ask you to click next. Then it's going to confirm if you're going to be marking up subtrade invoicing use 10 and 10. Now keep in mind, at any point, the time and materials billing wizard does allow for modification. This is simply a guide to help create your billing package. In company settings, you can add your customizable steps inside company settings as it stands right now. Then, now I'm not going to go through all 10 of these options. I'm just going to go through a few of them. But basically, we're still on step 2. It's going to ask you to confirm which invoices will be utilized for subtrade markup. Maybe you don't want to use Joe's Carpentry because you decided to use Joe's Carpentry for an actual temporary labor clock in. And you're not going to push him through as a subtrade 10 and 10. So you can select the specific invoices that you want to mark up as 10 and 10, and then select next. Then it's going to associate all the equipment that you have allocated to the job. Now we are going to be adding into this time and materials billing wizard a couple of modifications based on some feedback that we have gotten recently, which will apply some additional logic here that you can put in company settings dedicated to how you bill your equipment specifically. It's going to walk you through the entire process. So it takes you through the entire billing section. If your company uses our AP approval process, copy of the invoices will already be available in your attachments sections and available for viewing. And all reporting will be available in multiple export functions. Now here, again, what I was speaking about earlier is in company settings, you can add different options in our automated billing wizard setup. So if you wanted to add your own review option or own review step in our wizard setup, you can also do that. So you can add that critical review step in company settings. And then once you have processed your billing package, it will create associated reporting based off of the package that was created. So billable labor, associated labor fees, lodging and hotels, your consumables, your equipment and tools, reimbursable items, etc. And each of these will be clickable items that you can open and view the associated reporting that has spit out. Now, once you're happy with your package, you can convert it to an invoice to your associated accounting platform. That wraps up today's Proven Learning series on temporary labor and time and materials billing. I want to thank everybody for attending today's session. If you have any questions or feedback, I do encourage you to please reach out to our support team at support@canamsys.com. Again, we appreciate everybody for attending today's Proven Learning series.